All right, guys, so this is going to be how I typically do notes, and I just want to give you a side note. I've been on hold for an hour and a half, so I have a Bluetooth in this here, so if I suddenly pause it and it looks really awkward, that's because someone finally picked up, and I'm content with life again. So we're going to start today with reviewing how to solve equations. Now, the vast majority of you are going to kind of look at me and be like, I know how to solve an equation. I don't need this. I'm perfect. I'll just use photomath anyway. Okay, that's great, but this is just going to continue all year. Eventually, you're going to come back in person, and you can't use photomath. You're not that slick. All right? So I want to make sure that you, number one, remember the proper way to actually solve stuff, but number two, we can figure out how to get rid of fractions, because let's be honest, y'all hate fractions with a deep burning passion. So we're going to start off kind of easy. One of the first things I do want to bring up is getting rid of coefficients outside of a parenthesis. So there's actually two ways of solving this. You can take your pick. So method one is going to be just distribute and go. And that'll look like this. So I have 7 times the quantity p minus 5 equals negative 91. Distribute my 7 into both of these. 7p minus 35 equals negative 91. Add 35 to both sides. I get 7p equals, what is that? That is negative 56. Don't feel bad about using your calculator. So I actually have an emulator for a TI-84 because I have an Android because I'm not that cool yet, and I refuse to get an Apple. But it's got a full TI-84 emulator. Don't feel bad if you use it for addition, subtraction, multiplication, all that stuff. The reason I don't want you to feel bad is you get to use a calculator. The only time I'm going to tell you you can't use a calculator, the numbers won't be this bad. So don't feel like you are less than for using a calculator for basic stuff, especially when we first come back into school, because let's be honest, we've kind of all forgotten the basics. So we're going to finish this one up, and I get p equals negative 8. All right, so that's the first method, is distribution. That's probably what you guys have seen in Algebra 1. However, I want to introduce you to another method, and it is to begin with division. Because if you think about it this way, the 7 out in front of our quantity of p minus 5 is technically a multiplication. So I'm saying 7 times this stuff equals negative 91. Now, the luxury is I could just do this. And Lord knows I don't know what that is off the top of my head. And I get p minus 5 equals negative 13. See how the numbers are a lot smaller right off the bat? I can add 5 to both sides and get p equals a negative 8. Still, it is still the correct answer. It's just kind of a difference in how you want to solve it. If you're in my class, I personally don't care which way you go, because in theory, you should get the same answer, unless you fat finger something in your calculator and then bad things happen. All right, example 2. I'm actually going to bump this bad boy down a little bit so we can kind of see. So the second one is a negative 146 equals negative 5 plus 8 times the quantity 4v plus 2. Now, here's kind of the problem. We can't use that cool method that we just saw with dividing by 8 because of this punk right here. So we are going to have to distribute on this one here. It's a little bit more complicated, and we've got negative 146 equals negative 5v plus 8 times the quantity 4v plus 2. Now, we can't use that method I just showed you with division because this little guy right here is not divisible by 8. Darn. And moving it isn't going to help because it's still a v. So instead, we're going to have to use distribution. So I've got a negative 146 equals negative 5v plus 8 times 4 is 32. V plus 16. I'm going to combine my like terms. So I get 27V plus 16. I need to move my 16 over. Negative 146 minus 16 more. Is negative 162, and that equals 27V. From here, I'm going to divide by 27 on both sides. And I end up with V equals negative 6. Now you'll notice as I go through and do my problems, number one, I try to keep everything very neat. And if you kind of imagine, I try to keep like a straight line from my equal sign. Number one, I write really big. Number two, my other reasoning for this is I know which side is which. Eventually, some of the math that you're going to see, like even Thursday of this week, is going to be compound inequalities. So you're going to be doing double equation solving. And you're going to want to keep things separated depending on the and or the or. The other thing you'll probably notice is I box my answer, and I box it big. So understand that we are grading your quizzes and tests based off of work. So on a quiz or a test, you'll see this problem. Edulastic will have a box where you input your answer. That's great. You could have snapped a picture of this on PhotoMath or MathWay, and then it'll spit this out. The problem's going to be all of the work needs to be done and turned in as well. The reason for this is because I know y'all cheat. Number two, it's because I need to actually know that you know what you're doing, not that the internet knows what to do. But number three, this is going to continue to build all year. And if you're phoning it in on the easy problems, it's going to end horribly later in the year. So please don't do that. Use PhotoMath, use MathWay to check your answers, not do all the work for you, because you should know what you're doing, especially in accelerated. All right. The next one. Again, we have a distribution. I can't divide by 2 because this is odd. I don't want to deal with fractions of a variable. All right, so I'm going to solve this one the exact same way I just did. I'm going to distribute on this right-hand side. I'm going to combine my like terms. Whoops, switched my sign. That's the other reason why we really want you guys to show your work is let's say you done goof and you did what I just did. That's an easy mistake to catch and it's an easy mistake to make. And I would still give you the vast majority of your points because I know you know exactly what you did. You just, sometimes brain to hand connection doesn't always work. All right, now you'll notice I have variables on both sides. I also have numbers on both sides. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add 6 over here, add 6 over here. Hold on. Those cancel. I have negative 8n equals 15n. I'm going to move this 8n over. I get 0 equals 23n. That looks a little funky, doesn't it? However, if you divide both sides by 23, 0 divided by 23 is still 0. You can give nothing to 23 people. You can give nothing to as many people as you want. The problem becomes when you're dividing by a 0. So in this problem, n equals 0. I am done. We are okay. We're going to keep going. All right, up next, we got some double distribution. All right, again, recommendation, show your steps, work everything out. I know one of the biggest things with accelerated is you guys are just like, I just got 4 in my head. And then, no, show me your work. All right. If you're not including your work on your homework, I'm going to give you a 0. The main reason is I give you the problems. I'm also giving you all the answers on your homework for unit 0. The reason I'm doing this is because you should know how to get to the right answer. I just want to see that process more than I care about the answer. Does that make any sense? All right, for this one, lots of distribution. So let's get started. -9 plus 3 minus 6p equals -2p minus 22. Combine my like terms. Really the only two I can combine are over here. And I get -6 minus 6p equals -2p minus 22. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this 6 over. What is that? 16. Add this. So I have -4p equals -16. So p is going to equal 4. It's tedious. I get it. A lot of you think you've got it. Just appease me. All right, last problem. And because I'm a total jerk, I saved the worst for last. Now, I'm going to teach you a trick. Number 1, how do you get rid of these fractions? Because let's be honest, you're all losing it the second you see this problem. You're like, why? We haven't actually physically been in school in 6 months. You may not have actually put on real clothes and just lived in PJs for 6 months. Why would you give me fractions like this? And that's because I'm a horrible person and I like to torture you and it brings me joy. That's not really it. I want to know that you guys can solve this. Because as soon as you know how to get rid of the fractions, you guys are fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here and I'm going to turn it into an improper fraction. All right, the reason I want to turn it into an improper fraction is because number 1, the only time anybody really uses mixed numbers is in cooking. But number 2, improper fractions are just better. All right, so to do that, I need to go 3 times 12, and that gives me 36. 36 plus 11 gives me 47. All right, so my new fraction is going to be minus 47 over 12. Now notice I did not say combine like terms first. All right, the reason for this is we are going to try and look for a number that is going to, number 1, get rid of all of our fractions, but number 2, make our lives a little easier. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to get rid of this 120 because 120 is divisible by 5 and it's divisible by 12. So I'm going to take this entire monstrosity and I'm going to multiply it by 120. All right, so here's what happens when you do that. When I multiply this by 120, these cancel out right here. And I'm left with negative 389. That's it. The fraction part goes away. You also need to do it to this m, so it's going to be 120m. All right, now, this is where it gets a little weird for people. Your calculator can do this part for you. So my recommendation is to type in on your calculator 120 times 6 divided by 5. So I've got 120 times -6 over 5, and I get 144. And I'm going to do it again right here. So 120 times 47 divided by 12, and that gives me 470. So did you get rid of the fractions? Absolutely. Does it look a little worse? Yeah. They're big numbers. That's why you got a calculator. All right. So now I'm going to go into combining like terms. So I've got negative 144 plus a negative 470, and that gives me a negative, hang on, let me copy, 614. Move this bad boy over. $614 minus 389 is 225 equals 120 N. All right, we are almost done, I promise. Divide by 120 on both sides. Now, this is where it screws everybody up. You will get M equals 1.875 in your calculator. Nobody likes that. So, depending on the calculator you have, you can convert it to a fraction of 15 over 8. All right? I want you to kind of accept that fractions are options as answers. I've known from previous experience, anytime students see a fraction as an answer, they're like, I did something wrong. No. Not always. All right. If you're ever in doubt, that's when you reach out to me and I'll tell you, yes, the answer should be a fraction. No, it should be a whole number. Let me see your work. Let me see if I can help you figure it out. All right. But that is the vast majority of solving equations. As a quick refresh,